your friendly neighborhood PhD, and you're listening to the Pod.
Hey everybody, it's another episode of the Pod. This one's coming to you during Disability Pride Month. And I'm joined by Sarah Burcaw, who is the co-founder, vice president of Laughing at My Nightmare, which many of you are aware of. And hopefully more will learn about it through this video, but it's great to have you. And I'm looking forward to sharing like a little bit of your specific story, going along through LAMN and through even your time before that. So great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Ty. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, very excited to chat again. The first thing I wanted to ask, I know we always like the icebreaker things. So for you, is there like a summer anthem that you have currently or one that you had back like when you were younger that still sticks?
Ooh, that is I feel like there's so many I could go back through that always stuck through the summers. But I will say, for the first time in a long time, I have a new one. I don't know if you're familiar with Summer Jones.
I am not.
She is incredibly talented. I think the song is I Wish I Knew is the name. And she has this acoustic version that is just such a feel-good, happy song that is one of those that you play in your car really loud and it just makes you feel really good about the day. So that has been my 2026 summer anthem. So nice. Highly recommend.
Well, it sounds very summery, so that's always a good
thing.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And then the follow-up kind of to that, what is your ideal, like, do you like to go on summer vacation every year, or like, is that a thing for you?
It has been a thing for me and my family for many, many years. We actually typically, my sisters and my mom, we go to the beach. We go to a beach in North Carolina every year for a week. We haven't been able to go the past 2 years because there's some new babies in the family. So we're going to wait and go back. We're going to try it again next year. So
and take all the babies to the trip.
Yes, exactly. Once they're all like ready to actually, have some fun and not be super stressful. So we're going to test it out. But we do some weekend trips here and there. But I love traveling in the summer. Do you travel at all in the summer?
Not a lot, like more day trips, like some, I don't know, like picking out some concerts or there's some waterfalls in the state I'm kind of looking at.
Yeah.
So, just some very casual sightseeing type stuff.
Absolutely. There's some beautiful spots to go out by you. So
definitely. The Appalachian Mountains, being kind of close. But
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, now I can I get a good aesthetic, your summer traveling and the music playing in the
That's right.
Scenery,
That's right. You can set the scene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Great. That's awesome. So pivoting from that, I was thinking if you could give a very short sort of elevator talk about just you in general and let you kind of go where you want to with that.
Okay. So my name is Sarah Burcaw. I am also the cousin of Shane Burcaw. You might have heard that last name before. And back in 2011, Shane and I started Laughing at My Nightmare, which is a nonprofit organization that supplies adaptive equipment, college scholarships, and a bunch of different resources to the disability community. Because we believe that access should not be a privilege. We believe it should be a human right. And we have worked for years and years and years to teach the world why that's important and how we can do better. And what we've done with Laughing at My Nightmare is provide all sorts of types of equipment, whether it be van modifications, battery backups, fully accessible vehicles. There's so much. The list goes on and on. And I will say in 2026, it blows my mind to even be able to say that, because the only way we've gotten here is from the supporters that Laughing at My Nightmare has had throughout the years. And the way Shane and I kind of came about this was we grew up together, and I saw firsthand through Shane's eyes where there were just so many barriers to access for him growing up. And there was so much learning on the fly or finding resources that were not just told to you by the doctor or, mentioned at a support group or anything like that. There were just so many ways that Shane and his family had worked to find resources that were available to him to make his life more comfortable and accessible. And there's just so much that also insurance does not cover. So it has been my honor to have been able to start this organization with Shane and take it to the next level year after year, not only through advocacy and teaching the world the importance of access, but also seeing what we all can come together as a community and actually do on the ground for individuals, for small businesses, in every aspect. So that is kind of my little elevator pitch as far as who I am and what I do. And I am also located in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is in the hometown of Laughing at My Nightmare and the hometown of Shane Burcaw.
Yep, the well-known location, I assume.
Bethlehem, the little old Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it has a star on the map now, huh?
That's right. It sure does. I hope so.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I know just from, seeing how technology's evolved and how insurance coverage has lagged way behind, kind of what's available for adaptive tech now. And so they're just things that, like quality of life and like fulfillment of things that people want to do. I just think that's what I've always liked about LAMN, and the focus on education too, which again is super expensive endeavor.
Absolutely.
So just all of those areas that people have a hard time getting funded, it seems like LAM is there to, pick up as much as it can. And I really like how, I mean, it is accessible. Like just your organization is, I feel like everything is, out in the open, like the public knows exactly what's going on and what's available. And it's just really, it's been really cool to see, how it evolved through, just my time, like working with you all too. It's just been really cool.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. And the one thing I will say is when it comes to all of the advances that we have seen in accessibility and in technology and all the innovations that we've gone through, even just since LAM's been around, the one thing that I think has stayed really top of mind for me is that progress is incredible, but progress is not always guaranteed. And it's up to us. And when I say us, I refer to the disability community. I refer to the people that stand alongside the disability community, because we are the ones, all of us together are the ones that are bringing the information, to the community, but also trying to work together to find new ways to make the world more accessible, whether it is making applications for equipment more accessible or teaching people about what's happening to Medicaid. There's just so many different ways that progress can happen, but it's up to us. We can't just pin it on the advocates or pin it on local government. We've got to be part of the change as well.
Right. No, I think that's very well said. That's exactly how I feel with like the pacing of everything. And what I like too is that you all have done features on people that actually have gotten assistance with equipment or scholarships. Like the storytelling element I think is so cool because everybody has very nuanced distinct things going on.
Absolutely.
So it's a cool way to see like the diversity component of it too, I think. So that's one of my favorite parts about it, actually. So
I love that. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So I want to go into your story just a little bit, like sort of how you grew up, and maybe like, I know you said, Shane, like you grew up when he had his disability, obviously, but like what was your sort of take on being around people with disabilities, like as you were younger growing up?
Absolutely. This is such an interesting piece of our family that a lot of people don't know. So my younger sister and Shane are the same age, and they grew up in the same class together. And my sister was in high school, technically considered on paper, while neither of them would ever say this because they just didn't like the labels, she was technically his age. So she was in every single class with him. She helped him with everything. She helped him with lunch. And they just did everything together. And also when Shane was really, really young, there at times since they were so close in age, we were all together all the time, even when they were babies. And there was the moments of Shane's parents kind of recognizing that things were just slightly different as far as what he was physically able to do compared to other toddlers was compared to my sister. And my mom and my aunt interacted a lot at that time to kind of talk it through to see what where my aunt could go or who she could talk to, as far as figuring out, what the next steps were. And once Shane was diagnosed with SMA, I believe when he was around the age of 2, is also when he received his first wheelchair. So the number one thing that I remember us kind of having the most fun with was making all of our houses accessible. And that was at our house specifically, we needed like a small wedged ramp to get the wheelchair in through our garage, which was a pretty simple fix. Probably didn't feel as simple at the time. I say that now because I see what my uncle did and my mom did and my aunt did. And I even see what they continue to do at their own home of like these small little pieces of accessibility that make such a massive difference. A lot of them being like small wedges, to get into doorways more comfortably, wider doorways, wider bathroom hallways, things like that. So that was just always part of what we were doing and talking about and thinking about when it came to our family. But it was always just everyone brainstorming, figuring out and moving on. It wasn't something that became negative. It wasn't something that remotely became a problem or anything like that. So I think growing up that way, especially from such a young age, it really opened my eyes to the different ways that we all function in the world and the different ways people function in the world and why that is important to see and to have some type of insight behind so that, it's not thinking people are different or being afraid to ask questions or anything like that. It's, helping each other live more comfortably.
Well, it's not a confusing thing, or it's not like a taboo wrong thing when someone grows up, from a very young age using adaptive technology. It's like everyone else grows up around them, and it's not anything to be ashamed or worried about. And it does foster the creative adaptive designs of, modifying buildings or homes. I mean, it's the little bitty things, right? Like you said, the ramp like the threshold that's just only a few inches, but it's still an issue. Like you have to go through with like a fine tooth comb with the house and be like, okay, how are we going to make this work? But
100%. And I mean, to say, okay, so I talk about these small little modifications,
yeah,
but then there were these massive expenses that also came into play when it came to finding an accessible vehicle. How do you pay for an accessible vehicle? I mean, they are extremely expensive if you
yeah,
want something reliable, something that fits your needs. And then on top of that, in Shane's home specifically, they needed an elevator in order for Shane to be able to reach the bottom floor of the house. So, none of those things are covered by insurance,
no,
And when Shane and my sister graduated high school is when I came into play, I guess you can say, in Shane's adult life, because Shane and I attended the same college, and
yeah,
my sister ended up going off to a college that was a little bit further away. So I was with Shane then every day. And, we may not have been dealing at that point with those small little accessibility features.
yeah,
We were doing something a little bit different, obviously, because Liam was born while we were in college together.
yeah,
But there, the other thing that's worth mentioning is that figuring out those pieces of accessibility, no matter small or how large they are, never stops. There's
right.
always something else to get creative about.
And especially with like a progressive, like diagnosis like
Absolutely.
SMA. I mean,
Absolutely.
you're constantly pivoting, changing the
Yes.
environment and everything. And I mean, technology is advancing too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts there to keep track of.
100%. And I mean, even a wheelchair, like your wheelchair is good for, how many years? And then you need to get something that is more comfortable, that fits your needs a little bit better, that has a better seat. There's lots of different things. There's just always something.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious what your first experience, like as someone who was working or close with someone with a disability, like what was your first interaction with like ableism, and how did you feel about that when it happened?
That is a great question. And I probably can't go back to the very first time I experienced it, but I can go back to the most memorable one, because it had to do with me and my way of speaking and my responses to things. That at that time, ableism wasn't necessarily a word that was in our vernacular or anything like that. But it's something that evolved over time. And once you better understand ableism and the idea behind it, it's very easy to then look at the things you say or the way you think and be like, why do I think that way? That's so ableist. And, I don't think that that's a bad thing to have that realization. Because the most important part is then how you move forward with the information that you've got. I remember the thing that I remember in the beginning of identifying the words that I was using had more to do with Shane's prognosis and kind of treating it more like there was this expectation of the end and how that's okay to talk about or think can be part of a conversation and that be appropriate because Shane's been diagnosed with SMA. I realize now that's totally inappropriate. And that isn't how you should speak, because Shane is here. Shane is a part of our lives. Like, we are living now. And I do remember, having some responses to people that were maybe talking to me about Laughing at My Nightmare and what we're doing and how we started it. And it was, and even Shane sometimes would do it too. And he would admit it as well, of kind of like framing disability itself as more negative, as more of something that we want to get rid of. That's disability is and will always be a part of human experience. Same time, being here, working together, there are so many good things that are part of our everyday lives that we can frame disability in a different way.
Yeah, and that does touch on, I think, the whole idea of the mortality thing, and as far as also thinking of people with disabilities as they're complete human individuals too.
Yep.
And I mean, obviously, something can happen anytime to anybody. I mean, there's been, pro athletes in the news recently that have, all of a sudden they had an ALS diagnosed and they're not speaking a year later, and so it's just, I think it's important, and many of us with disabilities, we check ourselves constantly too, I've had several learning experiences, oh wow, well, even though I'm in the disabled community, I didn't have an awareness or knowledge or the proper understanding of something somebody else is going through that maybe I'm not familiar with. So I know that that's sort of taking that, or is it metacognition, I think is the term, sort of stepping back and looking at yourself and how can I grow in this area? Well, that's really cool though. I didn't realize your sister was the same age as Shane. So what did they become sort of best friends? Were there challenges in that dynamic at any point?
They became the absolute best of friends.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm not gonna lie, to some extent especially at family gatherings,
Yeah.
because they both had very similar personalities, very similar humor, and were extremely like quick and witty, they
Oh, yeah.
became like bullies sometimes. And it was
Mhm.
one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen in my life, because it was like my younger sister. It's like these kids that are part of my family,
Yeah.
like I'm scared.
So I'm
scared for
guessing
them
they were a
to
little
make fun
bit,
of me.
yeah, a little bit blunt with you probably.
Absolutely. Both of them. It was so
Yeah.
funny, but they were extremely, extremely close. And yeah, that was Becca and Shane. We always just said, oh, Becca and Shane are here. Becca and
Yeah.
Shane are doing this. They were two peas in a pod, that's for sure. It was pretty
Oh, that's
cool.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I always think of, when there's aides or caregivers in school,
Yeah.
a lot of times it's somebody provided by, by the school system, or
Right.
or
Or
maybe
someone much older than you. Someone
right.
who
Well,
is
that's
like
another thing.
perceived as
Yeah.
an adult. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, like the fact that was a thing is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had a lot of fun. They got into a ton of trouble somehow, but they had a ton of fun, especially in high school.
So were you oldest sibling, or?
No, so there is one more older
Okay.
sibling above me, at least on my side. So I have an oldest sister, so then I'm in the middle, and then Becca, and then Shane has a younger brother who's like the youngest
Right.
one between the five of us.
So did you all pretty much interact a lot and get along well, like as you?
We did.
Yeah.
I mean, we interacted a ton growing up,
Yeah.
but there was always the kid dynamic of everything, because my older sister and Shane's younger brother, there's a pretty large age gap, but as adults now, everyone is extremely close, and age definitely does not become a number after a certain time.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So that's where we're at now, which is really cool. I mean, I'll tell you what, the power of cousins. Cousins are family in every way, shape, and form, and can almost feel like siblings to an extent, in my
totally. Yeah. That's really cool to hear a little bit more about that, because that family support dynamic is a pretty huge deal. So as far as like your career path, like your life, like journey, where you wanted to go, like say before you even were in college with Shane, like did you have goals, or like what you thought you were going to move towards?
I did transfer schools a couple times.
Okay.
And when I originally started in school, I really wanted to be into fashion merchandising, of all of the random things. I learned really quick. I spent 2 years in a program at a school in North Carolina that was a really tough job to get into and take to the next level. And if you wanted to really take it to the next level, you needed to live in a larger city, a more metropolitan area, which is not something I particularly wanted to do. So when I pivoted and then transferred into the school that Shane and I ended up graduating from, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something that was leadership related and business related, at least in school. It's something I knew I was passionate about. It felt like a really helpful type of degree to get in whatever field I ended up going into.
Well, and business can lead you in many different pathways.
100%. 100. And I'm sure I wasn't thinking that way at the time. I think I just felt like that was going to be a strong option for me. So I ended up pursuing a degree in organizational leadership, which ironic that now I am the leader of an organization, which was not intentional, but certainly helpful. Certainly helpful. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And when I did graduate college, I went into a sales job for about 2 years.
Okay.
Definitely was not my passion, but it was a great first step, especially in really communication more than anything. And then I was in there for about 2 years, and that's when Shane and I decided that we were really going to try to take LAMN to the next level. I quit, and that is when when Shane graduated from college, and we started our career.
Was it like, I don't know, really, did it feel risky, or like you were taking a big step going that way? Because there's probably many businesses that sort of would start like that and maybe wouldn't go anywhere. So I'm imagining that was probably an uncertain time for
I can confidently say it was still to this day the riskiest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And we both knew it. We also had the agreement before I actually left the job that I was currently at. Because at this point I was living on my own. I was at 25.
When you had to have an income, obviously to make it work. Yeah.
Exactly. We both agreed that if we fell after 6 months, which is not a long amount of time.
No. How did you come up with, that's a short.
It was what we felt like. At this point, we had a very small amount of seed funding. And it was, if we couldn't possibly raise a single dollar, it could only get us through 6 months.
Okay.
So we agreed that if we felt like we weren't advancing within 6 months, which again, not a lot of time.
No, it's not.
That there was going to be no hard feelings, and it was understood that we were both going to just either figure out how to go in a different direction, either career-wise or something like that.
Yeah. You think you both would have pursued something together still, or do you think that would have led you apart if that didn't work out?
I have no idea,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, I think at that point, once we were 6 months in and we were really experiencing what it was like to, one, be in business with another person and also see
Mm.
what our skills really were, because we really didn't know. Um, it felt like really quickly the two of us, regardless if it was lamb or not, we could do something together that would be big.
Yeah.
And the 6 months came
Mhm.
and things did not necessarily go spectacular by
Yeah.
any means. And we did experience for like, it was from 6 to 9 months, we cut our pay in half because it was like we were building this up. We were like in this ramp up situation that was like, oh, we're so close, though. We're so close. And neither one of us could accept the defeat of
Mm.
we can't do it. And what we were in the process of doing was creating this speaking program where we would do a speech together and to anyone who was willing to listen, and for free initially, and then do it paid once we actually had a track record, once we knew it was an interesting thing people wanted to buy into. And that's what we did from 6 to 9 months. And sure enough,
It ended up working out.
it ended up working out. It ended
Yeah.
up working out. And that for then the next 3 years, we traveled the country doing the speaking gigs. And the
Yeah.
speaking gigs are what helped provide the first 30 equipment grants that we were able to provide within about from 2016 to 2018. So I'm sure there's lots of things that I'm forgetting happening in between
Oh, I
there,
mean,
but
there's probably a lot. Yeah.
that's the general gist of how the whole process worked. And I mean,
Yeah.
anyone who starts a business will tell you, I mean, it's always scary. I think the only way you are successful is you always live like the bottom's going to drop out. It is really
Right.
bad for your anxiety. I will admit that.
Right. But I mean, you're ready to handle the
Exactly.
situation that way. Yeah.
Exactly. And things will get thrown at you that you will never expect. And I'll be honest, for both of us, there were people that were very close to us in our lives, even in our family, that were like, are you sure you guys want to do this? No, they weren't fully bought into the idea. And they more just were concerned, are you confident this is going to work? What are you going to end up doing if it doesn't work? That kind of thing. And all of those opinions were hard to also listen to, but it came from this place. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, as cliche as it is, though, I think the two of us really believed in each other. And that's how.
I mean, it's nice to have like a little bit of defiance, like you're not going to let it fall.
Like, we're going to do it. Like, you watch. Yes,
right. Like
absolutely.
prove it to the doubters. But
yeah.
But so all right. So you did the speaking engagements, you started making some money. Then when did you decide to, apply for a nonprofit and get all of that set up? What was that like?
So we actually did that prior to us going
so
becoming full-time employees. Yes. So that was one of the first things that we did. And that would have been in the beginning of 2011. And the way we decided to do that was Shane and I found a nonprofit lawyer through Google that was in our area, and we went to meet with him. We literally, this is the most embarrassing thing ever, because I cannot believe that my brain worked like this at this point. We thought you just paid up front for like any conversation you had with a lawyer. So we literally took all of money the two of us each had in checking accounts in cash and put it in like a bag just in case. And that's how we were going to pay. And
nice.
The lawyer, we told him about that, which he laughed at. And I think he found us pretty endearing, I think, considering where we were at. And he's still a major part of what it is that we do. But he helped.
I can just see you both like carrying around like a a bag full, like with the savings.
What were we thinking? But he was able to explain to us what we need to do. He helped us on the parts that were just like felt a little bit too scary when it came to properly filling out and submitting articles of incorporation, creating bylaws. He had a lot of templates for most of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest admin task the biggest admin tasks that are involved with creating the nonprofit. And then we applied for the 501c3, which we ended up doing ourselves by help of another individual named Erin, who she worked as our bookkeeper for quite a few years, who was a wonderful woman. And she helped us apply. And then we ended up, I remember the day we got it, it was like I think it was like 2 years to the day of when we actually incorporated the nonprofit is when we got the approval for the 501c3. And it was like, that was the most surreal feeling ever. Neither of us knew what we were getting into at that point, but it was also just kind of like a win of our first win, I guess you can say, okay, the IRS believes in us, so we should believe in us too.
The IRS is in your corner, you've got it figured out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, that's really cool. So I'm curious, like, I don't know, like what was the best and worst part sort of starting up like that? I mean, there had to be a lot of things going on. I mean, like, you get the news that it was incorporated and everything was set, but then were there times where it also went backwards even after that point?
Yeah, I mean, I will say the worst part of it, and, I still struggle with this to this day. It's certainly not as bad, but every single day I would go home, and Shane and I would work out of his house unless we were traveling for speaking gigs. Every day I would go home and it was kind of like, all right, how are we going to keep making this work tomorrow? Tomorrow lived like really, like just the word tomorrow lived in my head in such an anxiety ridden way of just kind of what I was referring to earlier, of the fear of something happening, the bottom dropping out, and who knows what that ever would have even looked like or look like in the future. But it was just, it's this constant anxiety of like, we can't give up, like, don't give up. There's always something bigger and better to be doing. So it makes it really hard to enjoy in the moment, the things that are happening.
Well, and I mean, it's like you got to take the small victories and really enjoy them because, like you said,
they're few and far between, you have to. Absolutely. The best thing that ever happened was the very first grant we ever got happened. It was one that I had applied for and we got it about 9 months after we went full time with it. And it was a $25,000 grant. So that was huge for the two of us. I mean, this was like the biggest thing that had happened I think just to both of us ever in the world.
Or just to validate what you were doing. Yeah,
exactly. And that was like, I still think about that to this day, especially when things get hard or I'm trying to figure stuff out because, it just like you said, we had the buy-in from a large foundation. Like they believed that what we were doing was important and worth investing in. So it was almost like that validation, like we're right. We could do this.
That had to boost that had to boost your confidence a lot.
It did.
Yeah.
It definitely
I can imagine
it's power here. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're like, you have to focus on tomorrow, but you also, with that kind of situation and business, you got to look 5-10 years later too. It feels like you would have to be bouncing constantly.
Yes. It's wild. And you learn a lot along the way with anything, any career. It doesn't matter what you're into. And you just like never forget where you came from though. And like stay humble for sure. But at the same time, try to live in a place that you can celebrate the small things that are wins, and they happened because you put the work in, and those are important feelings.
Any like moments of conflict, or like where you and Shane maybe didn't agree on one part, like anything stand out there?
Of course business partners, like anyone will tell you that there's always going to be moments of that. I'm trying to think of like a really, really good one. This is something we've talked about before. I think through some of the funny jokes or some of like the things that we'll make fun of the choices that we made that just didn't work out. So like when we first started, one of the fundraising ideas, which, there can be some bad fundraising ideas, and we definitely had them, was sending these swear jars to local businesses saying that if anyone's, like, it was a joke kind of thing. Like, put a quarter in the jar if you say a curse word at. And the email, Shane also sent an email along with this campaign to whatever the business owner or manager was of whatever business we were sending this to. And the subject of the email had a curse word in it with like an asterisk inside the curse word. So it wasn't actually spelled out. And I was like, do not do that. Like, I feel like that is going to blow up in our faces. And it absolutely did. And it was such a devastating feeling of like,
well, and then like for him to send it out anyway, like, after
our hearts were in the right place with it. But at the same time, it's like, oh my gosh, it's not going to go the way that we think it's going to go. And it didn't, but you just keep going. Nothing bad happened. We offended some people, and that's okay.
Which happens.
Didn't mean to.
Well, and I mean, at least it wasn't a big enough like disagreement between you two to to
it certainly didn't rip us apart in any way. No, nothing has obviously ever been that bad, but there's definitely differing opinions, and I think we're both pretty good at admitting when the other when we're wrong. So I think that kind of helps too, and that we can kind of make fun jokes.
Well, I mean, it fits the mission and the
very laughing at my nightmare.
Exactly. Well, speaking of the LAMN thing, so I know there have been a few stories with like you, even though you don't have a disability per se, like you were, I don't know, finding a situation where you have to try to laugh your way through like a really bad thing. And I know there's a current one with the poison ivy incident, but like, you want to talk about that one, or is there another one that stands out where it was like you getting through a nightmare of some kind?
Oh man. I mean, as we all know, life can be filled with nightmares, and I certainly am not exempt from that. And, there have been terrible things that have happened to me and wonderful things that have happened to me. And I think, to be honest with you, the idea of laughing at my nightmare, once we actually created it, has helped me get through a lot of those. And probably, I mean, oh man, there's not so many. Like I have a wonderful life, but probably the most recent one is the best one, because it certainly was one that caught me the most off guard. And what ended up happening was right before LAMN's biggest event of the year, where we have an annual 5K, I somehow contracted a insane stage 20 case of poison ivy on my legs, totally covering both my legs, also like cutting the circulation off to my feet because I had no idea how poison ivy works, especially if it spreads really bad and you're
Right.
allergic to it.
Right.
And this was like the day before the 5K. And then unfortunately, in an unbelievable turn of events, I lost my stepdad very unexpectedly the day before as well. And it was one of those weeks of just like every single thing that was happening. I was like
Murphy's
scared
Law,
to answer
basically.
the phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything just couldn't it couldn't get any worse. It honestly felt like in my life at that moment, things could not get worse. But I also didn't want to think that way because obviously they probably could.
Yeah.
But I will say, as stressed, and I also was, very stressed about the event itself because I wanted it to go well, and I wanted.
Well, it was the first one in person since before COVID.
Exactly, I've been the first in person one in 6 years. I wanted it to be successful. I wanted it to be good. I wanted people to enjoy it. And to be honest with you, having the event in the middle of all of these unfortunate events probably really helped me get through it too, because LAMN has such an important meaning to me beyond what it is that we're doing for the community. It's just the idea that you can overcome hard things and you can keep moving forward with the mindset of, tomorrow is another day. There are people around you that rally around you, and you've got to focus on the things that are actually important, not the things that are bringing you down. Because they're always going to be there. They're always going to be there.
There's always worries, that you're going to have.
Yes.
But then it has a way of, I guess you adjust your perspective to,
you do.
What's going on. And like,
absolutely.
I don't know, for me, just now thinking about that, I was like, well, some of the hardest times of life are where there's a whole bunch of, bad, shitty things happening at once. But then is it better to have all those though and just get them out of the way than having something, back to back? I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on that.
I know. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to say this as a blanket statement. I am starting to feel more though, like the bad things do kind of come in threes to some extent. Hey, I hate to even think or say, but at least for me, and maybe just specifically in the situation that I was in and dealing with, when things are bad, when there's loss, when there's pain, that kind of thing. I think that's when people do kind of bind together and show up for you. And that kind of can then turn out to be one of the most joyous feelings that you can have of just seeing the community that you have and the support that exists in your life, that you realize you never are alone. And,
I was going to say, it becomes pretty evident, when you go through something like that, your support system and what it's like. When you were talking about your stepdad, I know that you had a special relationship kind of, but with Pride Month kind of being back to back, I was thinking if you wanted to share any of, your family dynamics or anything with like intersectionality, in multiple like minority groups.
Absolutely. I would be very happy to. And thank you for asking about that. So the stepdad that did pass was actually my father's husband. And I know many people are going to say, oh, she said the wrong thing, but no, my dad is gay. He was married to David for, since 2019, but they've been together since, the early 2000s. And, I was very fortunate to grow up with a blended family on both sides. David had 3 sons that are my 3 stepbrothers. I'm also very, very close to. Growing up in the early 2000s, being gay was not something that was super accepted by any means, or having a gay dad, also not something that was super accepted, or something that really made people just go like, what? So I think also having that be part of my life has also helped shape the way that I see how people can live life in different ways and build so much happiness and appreciation for everything that they have. And I feel like that's what we're all striving for. I am very grateful for the life that I've had in every aspect of my family. Whether it be my cousins and my sisters, my dad, my mom's husband, there's so many people in my life that have loved and supported me for in every way, shape, and form. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
And it does seem like it was an opportunity for you to, like, you could grow up around, like someone in your family being gay and also disability. I mean, like, that's something most people I don't think get like a first-hand look at. And it's
absolutely.
That's a rare thing, but then to realize, and it took me too long to realize it, but like marginalized communities, they're stronger together a lot of times. And when you have a connection, you can advocate for both, it's just, I don't know, it just really makes me feel that it doesn't matter like what our situation is, everybody's still a person in the end, and it helps you get away from that judgment type of mentality, I think.
I couldn't agree more. And honestly, even to just go back to what we were talking about in the very, very beginning of our conversation, and that, I do not identify as having a disability. I don't identify as gay, but
Right.
I think individuals that don't are just as important to stand in the community and teach others the importance of seeing the world in a different light.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
I mean, like we're really not anything without the allies too on the outside. I mean, when I talk about a disability community, I mean, it extends so much further beyond just the person with the diagnosis. I mean, and I don't think the allies get enough credit. And I think there's a lot of, anti-ableism probably thrown their way just because they feel like, well, how could they understand or know?
Sure.
Unless they've lived it themselves. But I just think that the perspective, that you share, like with your cousins and your family that have been disabled and everything. I mean, I just think that shared experience is valuable. And I think that you see things that, the person with the disability doesn't see necessarily. I mean, I just like the balance of perspectives that it gives you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I mean, like you sort of carrying the torch for LAMN, I was like, since, I know that Shane obviously is still involved, but he has his YouTube thing with Hannah and everything. But like, I don't know, it's just nice to know that there's people in our corner in many different ways. So like, I want to say silver lining, but I'll say silver lining. That's a good part of it, I think.
Absolutely. And that means a lot to hear. So thank you for being willing to share that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got the caregiver thing too, right? Like you did help Shane with most of the care. What was that like learning? Like, did you find yourself helping him as you grew up, or was it just once you were in college together and you were helping him that way?
It was mostly when we were in college. And it was also, it took a long time for, I think, Shane to be fully comfortable with it too.
Oh yeah.
Because like there is that level of intimacy as a caregiver. And it's not like Shane wasn't like giving me a book and saying, okay, these are all the things I need. And this is how you do it.
Right.
There is, one, we're family. We also had this business relationship and we were also traveling together. So there were other needs that obviously we were going to have to figure out together.
Right.
So yeah, that was kind of like that still happens to this day, when Shane and I see each other. It's just, I think as the caregiver, you have to come at it from a perspective of like, you don't know better. You don't know until somebody tells you what they need. You need to listen. You need patience. You need understanding. But
it also needs, as somebody that needs the care, it needs that sort of, I mean, the person needs to be a safe, trustworthy. I mean, like that relationship dynamic is really rare to find. Absolutely. And just my experience, like thinking of it, it's like certain things that would require help with the muscle disease. Like it's not always easy to ask somebody to do that. Like,
100%. And the individual receiving the care also needs to keep their autonomy in any way. That should be the number one goal, whatever that looks like.
With the two of you though, like that was probably a quick developing thing. Like were there specific caregiving things that you had to work through a little more that maybe he or you had to be comfortable with?
Sure. I mean, there is the obvious one. The one that took the longest for Shane to be willing to ask me was to help him going to the bathroom.
Yeah,
and,
right.
That felt like we were going to be, crossing this barrier that no one in the family, outside of his like immediate family of his parents and his brother had ever really experienced with him before. And, and we got through that. And I remember us having like a very fun, not fun. Okay. We had important conversation before and after about it because of, it was difficult for Shane.
Right. And I mean, that's a very, very independent private thing that almost nobody has to worry about.
Exactly.
But it's almost traumatic having to actually worry and plan that way. Like who's going to help me, use it and how are we going to get into the restroom? All those things that, and so I'm just like, that was so cool. I bet for you both to sort of navigate that as you were traveling. And like, I can imagine it made him feel very, I guess, more comfortable asking for help. I mean, when you have somebody, that they can go through these things and have the experience.
I honestly hope so. And, Shane and I are still very, very close and I'm so grateful for that. And like, I think that there is, and I'm sure many caregivers would agree with this. I mean, you build a relationship with somebody that you don't have with anybody else when you're a caregiver. And, I don't think that's talked about all that much, I think that it's a super important aspect of what happens. So honestly, I am so grateful that Shane was willing to share that with me,
Yeah, no, it's regardless of how many years like you have with a disease, like adjusting and figuring out uncomfortable things and everything. It's just still like there's constantly new things that are uncomfortable that you have to try to to
you don't know how
navigate.
they're going to make you feel. Yeah, you don't know how they're going to
Exactly.
make you feel or what they're going to make you feel like about the other person. Like,
And something new might come up too, that's
right.
that's a brand new problem. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. But that firsthand experience to me is like so valuable too, and the fact that, there is that comfort level of sharing,
Mhm.
some of your stories that way. I just think it helps for, an awareness thing. It helps the general
Absolutely.
public understand what life like that can look like.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep. It's certainly set us up perfectly to continue LAM. That's for sure. If nothing else.
Yeah. No, it's cool to see how LAM has pivoted, and changed in ways too. But then like the fundamental, like your foundation still kind of, it's there still. I don't see it going away. I mean, the importance of it is, it almost feels like there's an infinite need that will never be fully supported, but
Right. Which feels daunting, but also makes it that much more important to continue, know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to ask you, as you're looking at being a new mom soon and, navigating what that looks like. But do you feel like some of your experience with Laughing at My Nightmare, with disability, all these different stories and things you've gone through, like, do you feel like that's helping you in a way as you're preparing for that?
Absolutely. And I think there are, in some ways, I don't even realize how much it's helping to prepare me for what is next. And I am 7 months pregnant, so I've had lots of time to kind of think about this and figure this out. Like, I mean, obviously no one's ever prepared to, have a baby, especially as a time mom. But it has certainly made me think a lot about the important pieces of life that I want to, and just being alive, that I want to instill in her. And I want to teach her, the things that I feel are important stem so much from what I do at LAM. And I hope she feels that those things are as important as I do. And I will certainly do all the things that I possibly can to open those doors and share information that maybe isn't shared much with kids when they're young, when it comes to either disability or just people just doing things differently, or just who we all are, and how we're all so unique in so many ways. And I think that is a big piece of child rearing, to be honest with you, and teaching kids what is important and what's not important.
Right. And I mean, like, just all those experiences that you bring are going to be nice to, to talk to her about and teach her about. And she'll be like the new, spokesmodel of LAM probably at some point. So.
That's right. I mean, at some point she's going to have to be like, she's going to start volunteering young, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of a spin-off on that, like, how do you feel about parents who have a kid, like children with any kind of disability, like how has this changed kind of have you thought about it more? Have you?
Absolutely. I mean, I come from such a different, well, I don't want to say a different perspective, but I watched the adults in my family navigate barriers that probably seemed or felt really impossible from the get-go. But as a kid, I never saw that feeling of doubt or impossibility. I just saw them work through it. So I think that I don't know if it's like instilling the creative thinking, everyone's creative thinking abilities, or if it's just like, reach, or if it's accessing the support of people that are around you to get you to where you need to go to figure things out that might feel really complicated in the moment,
like advanced problem solving, basically.
Exactly. And I've seen so much of that, and clearly I'm not good at articulating it necessarily, but I wish that somehow I could either talk about that or show that to people that might also be new parents that are navigating disability, and how daunting it might feel. And I've heard people tell me how it feels, and trying to find either support groups or people to talk to or suggestions or any type of resource out there. Cause I'm sure, there is this moment of like, oh my gosh, I feel so alone and so hopeless, but you're not. And me just saying that doesn't answer any questions for people.
Well, but I mean, it's one person that's like in their corner that knows, a little bit about what it looks like from a different lens, so to speak, I think. And that's, absolutely. I don't know. I just think that your experience, it would make it like the empathy factor, and like anytime, your daughter like is around someone with a disability or anything like that. I mean, it just feels like a natural advocacy, if that makes sense.
I hope so. I hope so.
But no, that's really exciting. And kind of some little icebreaker questions I was going to ask you to kind of finish out. So you have 2 dogs, right?
Yes.
Currently. And so how are they with, you feeling the, new part of the family coming on? Like, have they change? Are they
So
the same?
I think everything's gonna be okay. I have a
Okay.
7-year-old mutt who is like a very, very good, sweet dog who's just like, he's definitely got some energy, but he knows when to calm it down. He can read
Yeah.
the room a little bit better. So I'm not too worried about him. The other one, on the other hand, she just turned 2 and she is a gigantic, giant breed dog. She's Great Pyrenees, who is still pretty triggered by the sound of babies crying.
Oh,
So it is, I've been like playing the sound on
yeah.
like our Alexa and stuff like that to get her a little
Preconditioning.
bit more
Yeah, yeah.
used to it.
Hey, you know what? You need to do like an experiment where like every time there's a baby crying, you give them a treat or
She gets a
something like
treat.
that.
That's a
Like
great
that.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That is exactly what I need to be doing. So she's going to be a little bit more of a wild card, but they're both really, really good with kids, and they're also just good dogs, and we'll work through it. You know,
Yeah.
we'll work through this all the time with dogs and kids.
Right,
So
right,
keep your fingers crossed for me that the big one can keep it together and doesn't always
right.
keep the baby up.
Has it helped you having them like as you're getting ready to like a support, I don't know, a support animal almost, or
Well, to be honest with you, I think if anything, the 2-year-old has helped me kind of like prepare to be a mom because she is a lot and
Yeah,
she is a
yeah.
presence and she is extremely needy. And I know that having a kid is very different from a dog, but to some
But
extent,
there's some things.
right. I mean, like your life kind of revolves around their needs.
Well, they run the show, right? Like,
Right. So
yeah.
now we're all going to come into this new world where
Yeah.
there's a little thing that their needs times 1,000 are
Maybe
what
some
will
jealousy on
affect
their
our
end,
lives.
probably.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But we're
But I
going to
don't
get
know.
through it. We're going to
I
get
love
through it.
having the dogs around too, you know, with the family when things
Me
like
too.
that happen. It's pretty fun.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And, you know, I hope that it will still keep me connected to kind of like my old life, you know, with
I could see that.
having my pup. So
Yeah, like you have some nostalgic memories of like the old version. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So last one I was curious about, and I know I've seen maybe one tattoo on your arm, but I was wondering if you wanted to share a story of one of your tattoos, like what it means to you, like how
Sure,
you went
actually,
about the design.
So I only have one other one and it's on my
Okay.
foot and it's actually a horrible tattoo that I got when I was like 18 years old. And I would get it fixed, but anyone who has a tattoo on their foot will tell you that it's the most one of the most painful places because it's just all bone. I don't know what I was thinking. And it honestly doesn't even have a good one. But my
That would
rose
hurt.
tattoo is I have my oldest niece who is going to be 5 this year. Her name is Piper Rose. And when she came into this world, she was just watching my older sister have a kid kind of changed a lot of my perspective just on family, on life. And we all, between my older sister, myself, and my youngest sister, who also now has 2 kids, we all got rose tattoos in honor of Piper as the first niece. So we're gonna obviously have to get some more filled.
I was gonna say, like, are you gonna be
nieces now.
Yeah, so like, are you gonna add like a flower for each?
Honestly, that was my original plan.
Yeah.
You know, I'll probably continue to do it, but
Yeah.
I haven't gone. We'll wait till my daughter comes and I figure out what her name's going to be, and hopefully there'll be some good idea that I can have and get flowers for
Tie
all.
that into it. Yeah, yeah. Like, did you? How did the artwork come about? Like, did you have somebody draw it for you, or did you just pick?
My sister had more. My older sister got it hers first, and hers was more of like the fine line design. And so I kind of wanted it to be a little girlier, but I always knew I wanted it to just be gray. I didn't want to have color in it.
Color, yeah.
I looked at a bunch of different pictures online, and then ultimately settled on a combination of one that felt more like me, but also still, you know, was big. It was big, it was beautiful, and it was one that like meant something to me. So,
well, so yeah, that's why like. I haven't gotten a tattoo, and I don't know that I will with my needle phobia, but like, if I ever did, it would have to be something, you know, connected to family, maybe having, you know,
I totally
a nephew, that kind of thing. So I think that's really cool.
And family tattoos, I think, are like the best ones. I will say, with every tattoo, and maybe I'm just being for myself, there is some level of regret that eventually happens. So I can't deny that. But whatever, it's all part of our story.
Weak about it. Like I would get the smallest little thing.
Yeah,
you can't even
whatever.
tell,
That's
like,
fine. Sometimes small ones even hurt. Yeah, but at least it's fast. So who cares?
Yeah, but does it hurt? Like, is there? I mean, I know the foot one is one thing, but
it's just a really weird sensation. Like I get, and it is pain, but it's also like it's kind of like itching. Like, you know, when you have poison ivy, it's like this like type of feeling. The foot one definitely hurt. The arm one, it's more just like an agitating feeling. So it just depends where you get it.
I know I would have to have some kind of scratching routine plan then if that was yeah. That's awesome though. Like I think that's such a cool way that people express themselves a lot, so they can tie that to their family. So
I agree.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to finally have the rose tattoo story.
Yeah. There you go. There it is.
Cool. It's been really great, Sarah. And I liked being able to share a little bit of your specific, you know, story and outlook on things. And like that, again, that's a valuable perspective just as much as someone who has the disability. So thank you for sharing all of that. And
thank you for giving me a platform to share.